Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Zach, and three special guest hosts, Alan, Jay, and Craig in the house. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Exciting.
What's up, TJ?
Beat me to it.
All right, so the idea of today's episode is it's kind of like a passing of the torch episode for the year. These guys, they want to take over. Or how should we say, sit in? You guys are the Taxi Squad. That is the name of. I feel like I'm fucking Saul up. Train of thoughts all the way all over the place. So, So if you guys missed it, Zach, Raj, and I are taking a year off just to kind of put our lives back together and figure some stuff out.
It's a sabbatical.
A sabbatical, a hiatus, however you want to call it. And these guys are stepping in. And we were tossing around ideas for what the sister show is going to be called. Taxi Squad just makes so much sense. We all just went through, COVID and COVID hockey, and the Taxi Squad coming from that. It made sense. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of introduce the host to the listeners here and get an idea of what to expect for the year. And I was telling the guys off air that I don't have a plan for this episode, and that couldn't be more true. So I feel like it's really coming through over the air right now, but let's just get into it. So we got Craig, we got Jay, we got Alan in the house. You guys are going to be doing episodes this year. Let's start with Craig, man. What's your idea of what's going to happen? What do you guys got planned?
Yeah, I think our plan as a group was to essentially start banging out some preseason content for the listeners from today, but we wanted to sit with you and Zach, and unfortunately Raj couldn't be here, but to get the intro one that we're doing now out, so everybody could at least hear our voices before we started talking.
Yeah, who the fuck are these guys?
Yeah, it's before we started talking about the fantasy hockey side of things. So we actually have a decent lineup of preseason content that we're going to try to pump out in the next 3 weeks before the season actually starts. And then, like we were talking off air and through DMs and Discord and stuff like that with you, TJ, we're going to try to hold true for the listeners with the 3 shows a week, the week preview, Tuesday trends, and then the weekend preview, obviously bringing, our own flavor from myself, Jay, and Alan into the show the best we can, and keep true to the roots of Five Hole and kind of keep it rocking until you guys are ready to jump back in, and hopefully you guys can join us as much as possible throughout the season as well. And hopefully we don't fuck it up completely. So.
No, you said something really great there, and you're talking about everybody bringing their own flavor, and I'm very excited to see what each of your individual flavors taste like. What I want to get to now is I want to know what each of your styles are, and what kind of vision. So Zach was always the empirical guy, right? He can see it. He knows that Jesper Fast, or who was it? It was Dominic Kubalik. You gotta watch out for fucking Dominic Kubalik. He's gonna score 5 goals or some shit, and then he did.
It was just because I would watch I watch a ridiculous amount of hockey.
There you go.
That's how I learned. I'm a visual learner.
That was our dynamic too, right? So I was always the numbers in concrete, and there is black and white, and there's barely a gray, which is hard to prove in a game as random as hockey, where literally everything is gray all the time. But I was trying to find the black, I was trying to find the white, and Zach is just like, shut up, just watch a game, fucking nerd. I want to get an idea, Alan. What's your approach to hockey, fantasy hockey? I guess to start it all off, what's your experience in hockey, and why should what gives you the right to tell me what to do with my team?
No, actually, started a fantasy league with some buddies of mine. I'd only watched the 1 year of hockey. I happened to jump on the Lightning that 14-15 season. So what a way to get into it. Your team goes all the way, but doesn't get over the hump. But yeah, and then none of us knew what we were doing. I wish I could screenshot that first draft we did. It was terrible, but I did get Austin Matthews in his rookie season in the 9th round or something. So I looked like some sort of prophet or something. I traded for him. Yeah. And then I traded him away because I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's buddies. Who cares? But no, I try to keep it simple with the stats. Like if someone's shooting it 50%, like no, that's not going to happen all season. But if they're not hitting the net and they're only shooting at like 6, it's like, well, that's simple. They're just getting unlucky. Like just hang on. Don't sell Austin Matthews.
So what's your evaluation style? How do you like start to jump in on players? Like what piques your interest about a player?
I still kind of do this. When I first got in to fantasy, just what I would do is watch the box score for games, like who's scoring, who's getting in on the assists, or who's getting the assists on the goals. Then once I learned about sites like Left Wing Lock, it was like, oh hey, well I see that this guy is playing with this guy a lot. Like there may be something there. He's worth a pickup. Yeah, it's just watching who's getting in on things.
There you go. Jay, what about you, man? What gives you the right?
Yeah,
Like
I guess like I guess the big thing with myself even was I've always grown up like a hockey fan. I think it's part of the immigrant experience, so to speak. Like not myself, but my parents. But I think being I guess in an immigrant family of sorts, you almost try to latch on to extra Canadian things to try to like almost justify the citizenship or whatnot. But it's a very different beast, fantasy hockey and regular hockey. And I don't think a lot of people really identify and break down, I guess, the difference, or I guess like bite into the difference as much. And it only really, like, I would say a very long time hockey fan, but I'm not a very long time fantasy hockey player. I've only played for about 5 years or so, and I very quickly realized that I have no idea what brings like a good fantasy hockey player to the table in the same way that I guess I would see a good hockey player. I was even like questioning and wondering too, like where the heck are all like the slap shots of my youth going? Like I don't see any of the top players doing like basic things that I assumed anymore. And that's when I guess I dug heavy into, I guess, like research about fantasy hockey. And even to this day, I don't really dig into like all the Corsi stuff or all the big stat stuff. I know I talked to Craig and Alan about me being like big into stats, but more than anything for me, it's a conceptual thing. And I don't play just fantasy hockey, but conceptually speaking, I really like the idea of the puck or the ball or something concrete that every player needs to touch. And if you look at every score, every stat in the game, it basically revolves around them touching the puck or touching the puck carrier. And so for me, I'm just heavy into the stats of I need the guy on my team who touches the puck the most, who's on the ice the most, in order to touch the puck the most. That's it. And if you follow this basic little box and run it all the way through, that's all that drives and guides my mindset about the game. And basically, I've honestly been really fortunate to succeed. I've won a couple of leagues since, and obviously finished third a couple of times. But I've almost always finished like first or second in the league, purely based on chasing the guys with most time on ice, chasing the guys that play all on the power plays, chasing the guys that play the shorthanded minutes. Like that's it. That is it.
Deployment. There's your answer, right? Deployment. That's the thing. I mean, you've done a great job at assimilating being Canadian and being maybe the most Canadian, or living in the most Canadian place possible in the Northwest Territories. Jesus. I had to Google it before we went on the show. Me and Zach were on Google, like, where the fuck is the Northwest Territories?
Yeah, we had to look up, well, I didn't have to look up Northwest Territories, but I did. Well, Northwest Territories is fucking huge.
Huge.
Number one. So, like, it's a vast, sprawling amount of land. So we had to look up Yellowknife and find out where that is. Being the closest, what you would say, large city.
You said 20,000 people in Yellowknife or in your city?
20,000 people. 20,000 people in Yellowknife, and right now I think it's
people.
around like
20 people,
like 3,000 people because of the Yellowknife wildfires. Yeah,
right,
so
yeah.
I guess just a September 2nd shout out, like thinking of all the people in Yellowknife, hope they get back soon.
So
Yeah,
who's your
but
team?
deployment is absolutely the thing that I go with, and yeah, TJ, yeah, my team, and I share it with Craig too. I am a Leafs fan, born and raised in Toronto, but like truthfully, even now, and that's the other part where I guess I'll jump in here and I'll say it. I'll say it straight up too. I think there's a difference between fandom and there's also, I guess, an appreciation in fantasy hockey afterwards, where fantasy hockey championships are not won purely by deployment. They are won by players who outperform the value of their contracts. And I'll say it again because everybody else knows it, everybody else says it, but I am going to go on air as saying I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. I am also a fantasy hockey connoisseur who appreciates the value of players who outperform their contracts.
Sounds like
and that's
shot
why
at Austin Matthews right there.
I love Austin Matthews. I love John Tavares. I love Mitch Marner and William Nylander and Morgan Riley and any other player that they say. It's amazing and awesome, and this is genuinely the best Toronto Maple Leafs team I have ever seen, possibly in my lifetime. But look at their contracts and tell me which player has a shot of outperforming the value of their contract. There is no player on the team.
Nylander. It's got like if it's anybody, it's Nylander, right?
John Klingberg.
And truthfully, I'll even say this on air again. Nylander's contract only looks great right now because Nylander's contract is not absolutely garbage. When it was signed, people offered comparables to Pasta, and they said Pasternak is outperforming Nylander and getting a worse contract. Nylander's contract is not great. Nylander's contract is simply fair, and the other contracts are just blown terribly out of water.
Can we not get super deep into the Leafs?
Yeah, it's like I'm going to have to keep these big market guys grounded.
I was just about to bring up Martin Jones, and that would have been another hour. So, Craig, what about you, man? What's your approach to fantasy hockey? What kind of stats do you look at, and what's your resume looks like? What gives you right?
I'm a fantasy. We'll put it out there. I'm a fantasy hockey maniac. I'm in way too many leagues. I dig way too deep at all of this stuff. I lose track of it sometimes, whether it's on Fantrax or Yahoo, what have you. I think I'm probably a good blend between Alan and Jay. Like I really have started over the last couple of years, like you did, TJ, kind of digging a little bit deeper into the analytics, whether that's through Natural Stat Trick or whatnot. But like that's a huge deep dark tunnel, depending on how you want to dive into it and look at it and kind of absorb the information. But I really start and stop with kind of deployment, tops, especially in the top six, power play time, points per 60, those top level analytic stats. Like I will go into IPP and those kind of things as well, and I'll try to bring that into the show. But I think there's a level of balance between how the normal fantasy hockey guy looks at it and then the really diehard people. And yeah, we're gonna have most of the diehard people, but you want to bring the fun, but you also want to bring the numbers, like you said, the black and white stuff too, right? And you want to make sure that what is spewing out of your mouth is real and backed up by numbers, right? So I think I'm a pretty balanced approach to that. My 2 home leagues I've been in for more than 10 years, my buddies there would say the exact same thing. Like I'm a psychopath when it comes to trading and just trying to make it as fun as possible for, the guys that I'm in leagues with. Has that approach hurt me in the past in terms of my ability to compete? Yes, but taking it a little bit more seriously over the past, 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of better outcomes in the more serious leagues that I'm in. But I think for me, it's about, and then in season, it's also recognizing who's hot and who's not, but also being patient with the guys that are, going to outperform, whether that's their ADP or a slow start, which you see every season, and they're going to pull out of it because they have a proven track record, and then that goes back into the stats and the numbers, like they are going to come out of that slow start. And then it's also recognizing the guys you get in the back half of your draft at the end of it. Like you got to cut them loose if they're not performing, and you got to jump on some of these guys that are picking up come, mid to end October and get them cycling through your your lineups, whether that's for schedule maximization or somebody's on like a really hot streak and it looks like it's going to continue. Like, I think that's what I'm going to bring to the table with the guys and try to bring that blend of, Alan kind of bringing that Zach side to the show in terms of he sees what he sees and then he looks at deployment, and then Jay also brings a little bit more of the stats but also looks at deployment, and then I'll try to, as we were discussing, tie a bow on it with what they bring to the table and this try to fill those gaps in terms of whether that's stats and or like for a specific type of league, like a categories guy that we haven't talked about yet, or a points guy that we haven't talked about yet, or on the Tuesday Trend show, somebody that's super hot right now that really needs to be emphasized for the listeners so that they can go and see if they can grab them before anybody else does. Right?
That was one of the hardest parts, like what you're saying about the deep dark tunnel with stats is I was talking about how hockey is mostly gray and trying to find a black or a white when it comes to that. It's so hard with stats because all the stats point to what should happen, but so rarely does what should happen actually happen. So there's different things that like point to which way things are going to go, and knowing the difference between somebody like Andre Kasha, one of my favorite guys from a few years ago, who when he's on the third line, he's pounding out like 19 shots per 60, and then as soon as he gets a shot on the top line, it goes right down to 6. So it's just one of those things, and like being able to differentiate between the two and using that, I think if you were to watch a hockey game, you would be able to see Andre Kasha's not doing so hot when he's on the top line, right? And the numbers aren't going to tell you that. Going over to natural stat trick. Boys, I just realized that this whole time I've been recording with my computer mic. So what I'm going to do...
It sounds pretty clean, man.
Yeah.
There we go. So what I've done, so in the Google Meet room, I have my mic on. But in the local recording, I had my computer mic. So that's going to sound like shit the first half. And that's fucked. Sorry, everybody. What a send-off, right? Zach, I can't tell if you're there.
There was one thing I wanted to mention as well.
Sure.
So there's one thing I wanted to mention as well with the, aspect of fantasy as well that I guess gets covered probably throughout the season, but just doesn't get reiterated to the listener quite as often, which is there are people who draft and then set it and forget it. And then there are people who draft and participate in the waiver wire and the pickups they focus on throughout the season. And I remember just reading online, they did a stat on Reddit, and it's probably famous to everybody, but there was a stat to the effect of the people who drafted first overall won, and then they put a stat out. It might have been something like 9%. It was something like a 9% correlation between the higher you drafted in the order and then you managed to win. Wow, okay, there's a 9% correlation. So obviously it's better to draft, like your Austin Matthews, your Connor McDavid, as opposed to drafting. No, I don't want to shit on any last 10th pick round. I don't know which player will be picked 10th, but do you want to guess
I think
what the
it was
correlation...
like the 9th or 10th pick is the biggest on the losing side, was it not, TJ? It wasn't best, like third.
No, it's funny that Jay's bringing this up, and I'm trying to find it.
Because I thought you would never on the show
article.
once. Yeah,
I wrote that Reddit post, so I know all about it. Right. Yeah, so it was like.
I love that he's quoting your Reddit post. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was when the third round reversal was getting a bunch of airtime, and I was like, listen, your draft position has nothing to do with where you wind up. Yes, getting Connor McDavid is a huge help to your team, but what actually wins championships is playing the waiver wire, because by the end of the year, I'm one of the people, I don't even remember where I drafted, what position unless I have Connor McDavid, because that's a clear-cut way of, I drafted first, right? At the end of the year, my team is so different that I don't even know. But the correlation was, I think it was like a 60% correlation to it was 9% for first place finishes, finishing higher in the end of season rankings, but the players and the GMs who used the most transactions, that's what it was, the transactions, whoever had the most transactions over the year had a 60%. I think it was like 59. So
I think it was 53%.
It was 53?
Yeah, it was 53%. But it's a
I'll find it.
much higher correlation with your activity on waiver wire than it is your draft position. And we mentioned it a bit too, right? Like with Alan and Craig, I guess in the Taxi Squad meetup. But it's very much the idea that you are not getting the most points in the season overall. That's not necessarily the champion. Although often you probably finish with the higher points accumulated. If we're counting categories, it's the total number of accumulated stats. But you are trying to get a weekly win. For most people and most listeners are going to be playing in a head-to-head. So you're trying to just get the most stats in a week. And if that means you get a play, like maximizing that schedule is just so key and so important in so many ways that people don't realize. I remember we had a guy that was very active on the waiver wire. He'd be picking up all the third-line Florida players in that 21-22 season when they're, tearing it up. They're killing teams 7-1, 8-2. Florida played 2 games that weekend. They picked him up after the second game. There were no more games in that week.
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point? That player is not going to help you win that week. And sure enough, that player that manager didn't end winning the week. Connor McDavid might be amazing, obviously, and he's not going to get dropped or anything. But if he's playing 2 games a week, and then Buffalo's playing 5 games in the upcoming week, you probably want the player playing 5 games. Connor McDavid might be such an outlier in such a way that you probably score more in 2 games than any other player. But maximizing that weekly lineup is the difference. There are people who don't look at the schedule and just add whatever. You have 8 guys playing on Saturday. No, you're only going to be able to play 2 centers anyway.
That was always something I would say in the week preview is one of the categories you need to be facing, or you need to be focusing on is games played, right? It's not going to show up. It's not going to give you a you're not going to get points for it, but it is what's going to win you your week, or at least players on the bench get 0 points. Somebody that's playing is going to get probably more than 0 points.
The real life,
it's not just that; it's when they play. Are they playing on off days? Which is a huge thing, because if you are winning your off days and your opponent has nobody playing, but you both have damn near a full lineup on your heavy days, well, then you're going to win most of the time. And another big one is, especially on, one thing I always love to do with the weekend previews is somebody that has a good schedule for the weekend, but also has, 5 games coming up next week, or, 3 games in 4 days to start your Monday through Thursday, well, then I can just hold on to them. I just saved a waiver wire pickup for later in the week that I can use at a totally different time, that I already have my player for the beginning of the week. I don't have to worry about it.
Honestly, you guys talking about that, I adopted that approach over the last 3 or 4 years, and like a real life example, my last 3 out of the last 4 years in my main league, which is a Keep 4 league, I've finished in the top 4, lost in the finals 3 times, granted to the same guy 3 fucking times, but he does the exact same thing, and he's a bad man. He's won our league, out of the 12 years that it's existed, he's won it more than half, and all he does is maximize game played every week against everyone. Granted, Keep 4, he's had McDavid since the inception, and he traded for Matthews in year 3, and has also had McDavid and Matthews since the inception of the league. So that's also helped him. But
that's not going to hurt you. That's definitely not going to hurt you.
So thank God next year we're burning the league down and resetting it, so he won't have those 3 players. So
that was something. Yeah, we did in our keeper. What was it? Every 4th year, Zach, we would go down from 3 keepers to 1, just to level the playing field, because capitalism run its course over those 3 years, right? And it was in late stage capitalism. Because what did I have? I had McKinnon, Draisaitl.
Oh my!
You had three of the top 5 players, and I had the other 2.
Yeah. Yep.
You had
And
McKinnon,
it was very much-
Draisaitl, and I think you had McDavid. Like it
in
was
the last year, I had McDavid. I went in big,
and I'm pretty sure I had like Kucherov and Matthews.
I think that's who I had is Kucherov. Yeah, you had Kuch, Matthews, and I think Yossi or something. But
And yeah, I had
it was just
another
me
good
versus
player,
Zach
but
every
like
year.
my best 3 were not as good as your, all-time squad.
So I found that post that we were just talking about. So the top 6 draft position average was 6.23. So the average finish versus where they started in their draft, the average draft position was 6.23. The bottom 6 average was 6.76, which is only a 9% differential top to bottom. The transactions of first place teams was 76.8. The transaction number count of last place teams was 12. So there is a 53% differential of how active you are on the waiver wire versus how successful you are in your league, which is why streamers are such a big part of fantasy hockey, and it's almost specific. I could see this being relevant in fantasy basketball. I don't play fantasy basketball, but that might be the only other sport that I could see like streamers having such a high significance. Football, what do you got? You got 3 days worth of games. You have a lineup. You're sticking to your lineup, right? Maybe you switch out a quarterback or a kicker.
It's pretty much one day. It's not an everyday thing. I could see it being like that in basketball. I could see it being like that in baseball.
Baseball. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah, baseball is a good one. 180. Jesus. Yeah. What is it? 162 games or some shit? Yeah, that's.
But there's such
quite a lot.
an onus on not becoming attached to people. How many times have we said, "Oh yeah, no, you got to drop that guy," and we got so much flack. Oh my God, how are you?
Evan Bouchard in week 2 last year.
Drop this player because I got to drop somebody. Because if I'm not picking people up, then I'm just losing out on games and I'm losing out on points. I have a really good team. Somebody's got to be. No matter how good your damn team is, there is a weakest link. There is a bottom. There is a bottom.
100%.
Even if
no matter how good your team is, there is always the worst player.
And it might not even be as far as points. It might be as far as if you're doing a league where you have center, left wing, right wing. I have 7 centers on my team. My 7th center might be really good. I'm just using that as an example. You have say you have a ton of centers. You have a litany of them, and you can't cross use them. Well, if I'm not using player X every time I have a full lineup, but I have left wing spots open every time I have a full lineup, then I'm losing out on points.
Yep.
Well, we were talking about something as simple as like maximizing the amount of players on your roster that are dual eligible, right?
Huge.
And gets top 6 deployment. The last time we met up, it was like, and like in one of my leagues now, like I'm pressing the guy who has JT Miller. I don't like him. Like, okay, he's an elite fantasy hockey player, but
he's tri-eligible.
I don't like him, but he's tri-eligible, and I'm weak at center to begin with. I'm pushing to get this guy
Ivan Barbashev
hard to get this guy because I know what he contributes. And it's a Cats league too. And I just want to go back to something that you said at the beginning, TJ. And I think it's going to help us when we are kind of running dry or haven't had time to dig into the stats and stuff like that. Like I also, like Zach, watch a shit ton of hockey. Like my wife is an ex-hockey player. She watches hockey with me, which has been great. And then my kids being a disaster when they were young and not sleeping, I wasn't really able to watch a lot of Leafs over the last 3 years. So I got really into the Western Conference, right? And a closet Flames fan because of that experience. And that's why I say closet Flames fan.
Well, you just said it in public.
And I'm a huge Jerome McGinley fan too when he was in the league, right? But I watch a shit ton of hockey too, so the eye test for me also kind of goes back and bolsters what I've kind of reading and digesting from a fantasy hockey numbers and statistics and wherever you're sourcing it from. I'm going to bring that element into the group as well because it's just like but wait, 2 nights ago this was happening. We need to maybe think about this in the discussion tomorrow, or whatever we're approaching it. And like, you guys are just making me think of my home league. Like, I am the transaction maniac in that league, and like, I even look at draft picks as currency, right? And like,
Yep.
I've gone 4 years in a row because it's a keep four, so we don't start drafting into the 5th round. I haven't drafted till the 8th or 9th round in that league, and I finished in the top 4 out of the 5 past 5 years. It's not about necessarily, okay, yeah, if you end up with TJ's team that has the 3 best players in the league on it, you might be in a little bit of a different situation. But if you can find value deep in your draft for a couple of those guys you can hang on to, and then everybody else you don't really have any loyalty, and okay, they give you 2 months of great stuff, and then you cut bait on them because they've gone dry, then you've got 3, 4, 5 maybe, depending on how you've built your team, streaming spots, right? Which normally doesn't happen. You maybe have 1 or 2 depending on how much stock you've put into your draft, which I've never really done. I've kind of built my teams around the idea of schedule maximization, but and trying to bolster it with 2 or 3 premium guys, and then everything else kind of just filters in and out, and I have no loyalty to anybody that way, right? It's just about trying to find the next hot guy, right? And where does he fit in, right? And
that's right.
I also want to say this too, and I remember it stuck in my mind so clearly because I finished 3rd in my last main in the past season in my main league. I finished 3rd, and it was the semifinal. I lost to the guy that eventually won it all. But truthfully, like, this is not something where it's like, oh, it's gospel, and if you follow this, every listener, every single one of you listeners is going to finish in 1st place. No, like, I'm going to tell you the scores on the projections. The projections based on games played in my semifinal, I was projected to finish with 371 points, and the other guy was projected to finish 294. I was projected to finish with essentially 125% of his points.
Because it's fantasy hockey. You can. I've been there where you score 200. You know, you're killing it. You just murder people every single week, and then out of nowhere, last week comes and you score literally 50% of what you usually score, and then you lose because that is fantasy hockey. Because no matter how much you think you know, no matter how much work you put into it, at the end of the day,
can't make them do it.
You can just get screwed, or people get hurt. Like, it happens.
And to some of us, that's our wives, and it's been a long summer.
I want to move into what kind of stuff you guys got planned for the preseason here. So let's. I don't know if you guys got a list. I remember we were talking about like divisional previews that we're gonna get into the teams, the changes. There's been a lot of changes this offseason. So I'm sorry if anybody's listening to this episode hoping that we were going to talk about Erik Karlsson and Ross Colton and Jonathan Drouin. We're not, but these guys are. And they're going to do it over the next month or so. So what do you guys got planned for the next month?
Do you have the balls to do rankings?
Are you guys going to rank? Are you guys going to get that? You're going to, invite that smoke into your life?
Well, get ready for the firestorm, boys.
I think the guys, like, what you hit it right there, Tej. Like, we're going to jump into divisional previews as soon as we can. Like, we're a little bit slow moving off the ground because of scheduling maximization from the 5 of us trying to get this episode out. But I think we're gonna do, because there's a lot of content out there, but we want to try to get our feet wet for the listeners to get them back rolling with us. Is like we're gonna hit it everybody with the Metro first, right, guys? Is that what we're doing? Metro and then Atlantic, right? So Metro and Atlantic Division within the next week or so, we're going to get that out. And what we're going to try to do with the Metro and see what the listeners do, see what the community and Discord think, we're going to do it potentially in 2-team shorter episodes so we can kind of do deeper dives into the 2 teams. see how that registers, and then if we want to go back to full preview, full length episodes, we can. And then after we do the divisions, we're going to go into a little bit of sleepers, breakouts, busts conversation episode. Then we're going to do contract year guys who everybody knows generally produce at a higher clip versus their ADP.
Tuesday.
Right, because they're trying to get paid, right? And then going to do, what else? I'm looking at the list now as we're talking.
Goalies.
Oh yeah, my favorite topic.
Our voodoo episode.
We're gonna talk about goalie preview, looking at deep value picks for those that do the 0G stuff, looking into that kind of stuff. And then I thought we'd wrap up, and we'll see, maybe the guys will want to put some more stuff out there, but I thought we would wrap up the preseason content with like a my guys or all my money on who we believe in will either outperform their ADP, or just like all of us will pick 2 or 3 guys, like this is who we're targeting in drafts because we think that, you know, they're going to bring you the most bang for your buck, because of whether that is deployment or something specific that we want to draw attention to a specific guy. And what I think we'll do that to make it a little bit more intriguing for the listeners is take a look beyond like the first 2 rounds, right? Try to give guys like deeper value. Let's look at your 4th to 7th round guys that we believe could bring you like top 3 round value, right? That you're not considering in terms of targeting in your drafts, right? Because I know some drafts are going on now, and it's something me and the guys talked about last week when we sat down together in kind of our little individual prep. But there is going to be a lot of drafts coming up mid-September, late September, into the home leagues that guys are in. So we want to make sure there's some stuff for them to think about as they prep for those drafts as well. So I think that's the lineup that we're going to try to get out to everybody over the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's a pretty big commitment from the 3 of us, but we're going to make it happen. And then, like I said earlier, we're going to try to bring the in-season content from there, keeping the 3 flagship shows rolling while you guys are away. So
careful. I almost said careful with Tuesday trends. Like Tuesday trends, I always found it like maybe week 3 was a good time to start it, and I would always kind of like dick around. That's when I did my advanced stats preview, because week 1, I mean, you guys are it's gonna be tough trying to find trends and like justifying them. You know what I mean? We were talking before we went on the air, like, Buffalo's they do it every year. They go hot right out of the gate, right? So is Tage Thompson going to score 6 goals every game? No. All right.
It's
Right?
usually used to at least have 5 games to go on before you start being able to figure out a trend.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's I'm excited to see what you guys are going to come up with.
Me too.
And as for rankings, I don't know if we're going to be able to have time plus the preseason content that we want to get out. But
gonna be tight.
I think I was going to bring it to the guys later. Maybe we'll do like mid-season rankings or something like that, like compared to preseason rankings. Whether we do the 3 of us do our own versus Yahoo or Fantrax, what have you. I think that maybe be something that we could throw in as an additional show, kind of mid-season, to just to add something to the content as we kind of get up and running and the 3 of us start to get more comfortable with everything.
So we got 2 Leafs fans here, Jay and Craig, and I think through the grapevine that you let it out that you're a Lightning fan.
Yeah.
It's got a Tyler.
Autographed. Yeah.
All blue. Everybody's blue. Zach, what do you got for the guys?
Boys, I wish you the best of luck. I am more than willing to, jump on whenever I can, help you out with any sort of, takes of my own, and, pick my brain. I'd like to think that I have a decent amount of knowledge, and, I'm more than happy to share it with you guys. Help you guys through this process, and we appreciate it. Everybody's got to get their life stuff going. And that's what we're going to take this year to do. And I think that we're leaving, our baby in good hands.
Yep. thanks for keeping the seats warm. You know, it's gonna be good. I think, like Zach said, you know, it's in good hands. I think the listeners. I mean, we're gonna be starving for feedback at this point. So anything you guys got, throw it in the Discord. All the boys are in there. I guess I'll make you guys like specific roles, and people can chirp you guys, and you know, do what you need to do. But everybody, thanks for hanging out. To the listener, this is your Taxi Squad, and they're going to be coming out with some content over the off season here. This was a good because what I'm going to do now, just as like a behind the scenes pick or behind the scenes peek for the people on the other end of the microphone here, and teach you guys like, you know, all the editing bullshit, right, and posting. So it was good to get this like intro and icebreaker episode out there, because it's also going to serve a like a, you know, what I don't even want to, like, you know,
who are we?
Serves more
maybe?
Purposes. Yeah, like who are you guys? But then it's also going to be like, you know, practical purposes for the guys. Is you know, they'll be able to know how the editing side of things goes. So anybody that's curious, we are still doing listener leagues. If you guys want to get in the Discord, you know, chirp me for that. We're realigning the tiers right now, and we're going to be getting invites going out, because I want to get those leagues started drafting pretty soon.
Get the
for
good
anybody out there that was
old-fashioned
curious about those.
5-hole ADP going.
Yeah, the ADPs, those are Jeff's kind of working that one. FH89 in the Discord, he's been championing the ADP sheet. I think he's got Keeping Carlson's ADP project in there as well. He's going to take Nate's from Apples and Genos. He's going to put it into the you know, the legacy FHP draft kit that he's been maintaining over the years. You know, great tool that's inside the resources channel of the FHFH Discord, if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, I guess I still got to get you guys up on the Twitter. I got to get you guys like the login credentials for the Twitter, so people can start, you know, chirping you guys for you know, draft and pick up advice and shit like that, and the Twitterverse. But
Twister.
yeah, I don't know if you guys got any. Well, now it's X. And it's fucking stupid.
I'm not calling it X ever. It's Twitter, and like, just
yeah, it's
hey,
Twitter.
Hey, listeners, come along on this journey with us. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna be interesting. We'll do our best to try to make us all better at fantasy hockey, because I think even that's probably still TJ, Zach, and Raj's goal, is to be the best they can, but also deliver some cool content to everybody. So I think we're going to try to stay on that course and that mission, and try to be as relatable as, and I have no problem sharing my failures in this crazy community that we all are obsessed over with, for winning, you know, a couple $100 here or there, depending on how many leagues you're in. So
we're going to need more episodes than 3 a week, then, eh? But no, that's yeah. I'm stoked for you guys. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for holding the mantle while we sort some shit out. Anybody that's gonna be drafting against us this year, you're not gonna have an inside track on who we like and who we're ranking where. So that's gonna be a ton of fun for you guys.
That's a good point.
Our cards are gonna be face down for the first time in like close to 10 years. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have a good time with it. So I guess we're gonna close it out here, yeah. So I don't know if you guys want to do the outro, but fucking fire it away.
Have we even talked about how we're signing off the show? Yeah, I have no idea.
Figure it out. Yeah, isn't that how we did it? That we just kind of fucking, you know, just do it, right?
Yeah.
All right, bye.
I guess
bye.
you just say
Bye. Okay, bye.
Love yous.
Okay, bye.
Something like taxi out or something.
Taxi Squad will be back. I have no idea what the hell are we supposed to say. We'll talk to everybody soon. We'll be back with some preseason content.
This should be the sign off every single episode.
And
it's just like, how the fuck do we say goodbye? And it like fades out.
We got a big tab.
I guess we I like it.
Keep it punny, right?